Oh, hey, we started recording first time today. That's that's a nice change instead of just hammering on the record button for a few minutes. Hey, hi, hello, etc., Alexandrian Codex, yada yada. Uh, man, there were a few things I wanted to talk about. So, I started playing Pillars of Eternity 2. Because, I mean, the system's weird, right? Like, I don't feel like that's a controversial thing to say. It is pretty different. I don't say that with a huge amount of positivity. Oh god, the Egg Festival's tomorrow. It's fine, but I don't really know what it adds to the role-playing game or tabletop role-playing game genre over Dungeons and Dragons. Like, there are a couple of interesting classes and like some sort of interesting races, and like conceptually the setting is, to me, kind of more engaging than the Forgotten Realms setting, because Forgotten Realms is bloated and dated and has some like weird, vaguely problematic baggage just for being as old as it is. So I enjoy it, but also at the same time, I don't want to learn a bunch of new words for elf or human or dwarf. I don't want... it's kind of cute in a way, but it's also just like aggravating, and too much thought goes into it. Like, why call Warhammer does the same thing. Warhammer Fantasy does the same fucking thing. Why call them Dali instead of dwarves? We all know they're dwarves. They're just fucking dwarves. And the whole Warhammer remake did not help this at all either. They're still dwarves or elves or whatever the fuck. Just because you're like, no, they're legally, intellectually property distinct now. Come on. it's gratuitous. So I don't know. It's a tough buy-in. It's a fine series. It's okay. I like the inclusion of firearms. That's nice, but it's meh. It's meh. I like the whole gods don't naturally exist, and spoilers if you haven't played the first game, and were constructed by people by harvesting souls, and yeah, that whole gamut kind of interesting. The religion and philosophy, and well, not philosophy, but the religious structure is interesting. It's not particularly new or inventive, because it's not, but it's still fine. But I started playing it, that aside, and you can get a game over screen before you finish character creation. Why? Like, when that happened when I was playing Disco Elysium, I liked it. But when it happened when playing Pillars of Eternity 2, I almost refunded the fucking game. Disco Elysium has this character creation system where it emphasizes very early on that not having enough of a skill or having too much of a skill are both very bad, and there will be consequences. Well, not bad, but there are consequences for going to extremes. It's platonic virtue and vices. Ooh, that was close. About God, it's been so long since I've read Plato. I don't want to go back and read Plato. You know what I'm talking about. The idea that too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So it fits that philosophical theme that the game is exploring. And, well, the game's exploring a lot of philosophical themes, but it's in keeping with theme, and it teaches something to you about the game immediately, and it's important. Also, there's a fucking autosave right before it, so you can just load up and not do that again. And character creation isn't like an exhausting process, it's pretty quick and easy, so even if you do have to rebuild your whole character, like I did to keep playing the game, because 1 vitality was way too low. Was it even called vitality? 1 health, whatever, was way too low. Oh, iron. How about that? It was a learning experience. Whereas in Pillars of Eternity 2, you're sitting with an NPC having a conversation, and eventually it boils down to 2 choices. Choice 1, make a pact with this god of death as their servant to be returned to life, and undertake this dumbass quest that they want you to go on. It's not a stupid quest, it's an interesting and engaging quest, but quest, right? Or option 2, say, nah, fuck you, and just your soul returns to the wheel and you get reincarnated. And when I was making this choice, having played the first game, I'm like, oh, okay, so if I choose yes, maybe like I keep my species and identity and memories from the first game, and if I pick option 2, then it'll be like a huge branch, and this is super cool, like I'm gonna have the same sort of amnesia I had the first time around, I won't know who and what I am, and like, okay, yeah, I'm down to re-explore that again. No. The game does not actually have an interesting, cool, meaningful branch there. The game has a big fuck you moment there, where it's like, okay, yeah, you pick reincarnation, you are reincarnated as a small mammal, and you live the rest of your life and die. The end. Why? Like, there was never anything in the game teaching the player, hey, this could be potentially bad or good. Like, there's nothing. It could be a learnable moment, right? A moment that's supposed to teach the player about the world that they exist in, that choices, especially decisions and conversations with gods, can be meaningful and impactful immediately, and can change the world and the game, and yada yada yada. Yeah, but also there's no foreshadowing to that, and more importantly, more frustratingly, you have to re-go through character creation all over again. And character creation in Pillars of Eternity 2 is exhausting. You have to walk your stupid ghost spirit to a table and sit down and have the exact same conversation with this god over and over every time you want to re-roll. Now, you can respec your character later on, but also, character creation is this laborious task of like, oh, okay, pick a species. Don't know the difference of species? Well, we'll break it down into a few bullet points, but here's, like, paragraphs of information and just lore dump that's not really relevant and won't really come into play. That's the biggest sin of the Pillars of Eternity series, is just the excess of lore. I like good lore, don't get me wrong, but that game tells and does not show so much. Like, oh, such and such empire, or the bloody blah islands that we never see on screen, and you only hear about, and like, influences the voices or fake culture of people. Like, in the first game there was a bit that, there were some characters that were from a different nation, and there was like this political intrigue going on with the trade between those nations, and I'll be honest, I could not have given less of a shit about it at the time. Like, oh, you know, in theory this is interesting, but practically in game it doesn't affect anything, because in a traditional tabletop role-playing game, I can get invested in the fate of a nation or a city or a town or whatever because I can keep coming back to it. My character exists perpetually in that world until I'm done with it. You know, there's reasons to care. But in a PC or video game, role-playing game, dude, once a game is over, that's it. Unless it's open world, unless it has replayability, unless, you know, etc., etc. Like, I don't give a shit what happens 20 years after the game. If this doesn't have a mechanical effect, if this doesn't impact the world that I'm playing in, why is it in the game? And Pillars of Eternity 2 really did not improve on that over the first game. The game is still way too much about how cool it thinks its own lore is. And the lore is fine, but it's not enough to carry it, I think. So, after reading through paragraph and paragraph about, oh, okay, I guess I'll go with this race. This is an interesting one. Okay, here's a bunch of renamed D&D classes, or just straight up D&D ripoffs, and, you know, whatever. That's fine. If it ain't broke, you don't have to fix it. And reading through multiple class trees and trying to figure out, well, okay, this synergizes with this, and I like this, and this background kind of fits, and like building this fucking character in my head. And then being like, okay, yeah, I'm good with this. Going through the rest of the conversation, which goes on a little bit, and then reaching the point where I'm given a choice between, oh, do you want to keep your memories and undertake this quest or not? I'm like, well, I already made my character, and there's no autosave. I'm gonna go with not. Then you just have to fucking restart, and you have to go through this slow-paced walking, this slow-ass conversation. It's just a very unpleasant experience. I recorded it and uploaded my reaction to that same sort of thing in Disco Elysium, and I loved it. I loved it. Was fucking ballsy, but it didn't come out of left field. The game had repeatedly said, hey, this is important. Hey, this is important. Hey, this is important. And what I assumed was like, yeah, you're just saying that the way the games always say that. And then the game immediately having something that can go critically wrong, and you can immediately die the first thing you click on, is totally fair. Like, oh, okay, yeah, you weren't kidding. It reinforces lessons it was already teaching you. It helps remind you of these expectations it's trying to set you up for. Totally fair. But Pillars, and I'm only, 4 hours into the game. I've been dicking around doing sandboxy stuff and avoiding the main quest because that's how I play games when I'm not recording, and that's how I play games when I'm recording. Honestly, the dialogue doesn't matter that much, and the decisions you make kind of matter, but I don't know, it feels kind of floaty and unimportant, if I'm being honest. Which is fine, not every game has to be Disco Elysium, but yeah, it feels like the lesson it was trying to teach me doesn't live up to the reality of the game. Or, I don't know, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I feel like the meaningful choices in Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2 are so drenched in unnecessary lore dumping and conversation that it just feels exhausting. Like, there's so much conversation that's just fucking filler and doesn't matter what you choose or don't choose, and I have 4 different ways to say the same thing, which helps determine my character's personality, which occasionally affects initial impressions from other people or how willing or unwilling they are to engage with me, which is cool. It's just so much damn reading for, I don't know. I'm gonna keep playing it. I am not streaming it and I am not recording it because so much fucking reading. I'll be honest, I skipped through the dialogue. I skimmed that game because it's too much. It's too much. I like the company though. I really do. And yeah, I guess I'll put in a cut here. It's a good game. It's a great publisher, but it's weird, dude. Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2, they're weird.